Okay, in this video I'm going to give you some basics about how to get some of this information entered into SPSS. In the Module 1 on Blackboard, you have a file called Book Club Data. It's an Excel sheet, and it basically is like this. And what I did was I took the data, the raw data from the study provided on page 15 or 16 in the book, and created a raw data set. And as we discussed in the previous video, or as I discussed in the previous video, you have an outcome, meaning outcome A or outcome B. You have whether or not they participated in the book club, and you have the number of books read. When you set up data sets, you need to do it like this. So the variables are across the top and the participants are going down. Now, to get this into SPSS, when you open this up, I apologize for that. The first thing you need to do when you get into it, it's going to ask you if you want to open an existing data set. You don't have one yet, so just say no. It'll open up like this. Is you have to create the variables. So at the bottom of it, there's a tab called Variable View. Click on that, and you're going to name your variables. So you can copy and paste into that. And sometimes it's a little bit picky, so if it's too long, it won't take it. And didn't take spaces. Sometimes you just kind of play with it to figure out what it is that you want to do. The other thing that you kind of have to pay attention to right here is the measure, and what it's asking you is what kind of data is this? If it's something that's a category, like a political party, whether or not they're in something, not in something, which group they're in, that's called nominal data. So I'm going to change both these to nominal data. Now, that's done. So we're going to go back to the data view. And now what you put in the variables shows up here. The other thing you can do is put labels in. The labels are what will actually show up in the results. And you have a lot more options here. Spell participation. But the categories remain the same. Now, what I'm doing is I'm going to copy and paste all this stuff that I entered in the Excel sheet I sent to you. You need to copy that. And paste it in there. And you'll see that something didn't come out right. They didn't come out yes, no. So that means that there is an issue with that. That's what it is. That has to be changed to something else. If it's a letter or something like that, we have to change it to a string. And I'll go ahead and tell you right now, we're going to have to change the outcome, if you remember from the other video, to a number. So I'm going to leave this numeric, and we'll just have to fix that another way. So now I'll change that. Now we'll take it. Now, as we said, the outcome, it's the same thing, that's a letter. And if you remember from the other video, you can't sort letters. It wants an algorithm to be able to sort that. So you might as well change this now. Change that to a 1. And I'll scoot up where you can see this. You probably know several ways to do this. Change that to 1. That to B. Oops. I've got all this information in there. Now comes the part about how do you run a test? Well, a lot of this, unless you already know some of this from a previous course, you don't know which test to run. We've only got two categories. It can only be one or two groups. The first thing we want to do is let's at least narrow down which group we're dealing with. So across the top are all these little icons. And one of the icons, you touch it, it says select cases. And what that means is it's allowing you to pick out the ones you want. So, and this is called an if-then statement. If this condition is satisfied. So if the outcome, this is highlighted, I'll move it over there. If that is equal to, stick the 1 in there, hit continue. Okay. As I said before, these screens pop up. It allows you to save all this stuff. We don't want to save that. So now, all that is saved in there. And you can see it's Xing these out because that doesn't satisfy the condition we have. So now we only have those in outcome 1. Now we want to know, is there a difference in the average scores of those in the group versus not in the group? So we want to analyze. There's lots of choices here. We're going to go down to compare means. We want an independent sample t-test because there are two different groups. So the test, what we're interested in, what's called the test variable, is the number of books read. And the way we want it to compare it is whether or not they're participating in the book club. And it won't let you move on unless you can answer all of its questions. So it kind of forces you to deal with this issue. Define the groups. Well, what are your groups? Either yes, you're in it, or no, you're not. You'll notice that goes away. You have a button here called Options. There's really not anything you can do with that, so cancel that. Hit OK. Give it a few minutes. And you get some stats. You get how many you had in the book club, how many you didn't have in the book club, standard deviation, means, and statistical tests. And as you saw previously, there's a significant difference between being in the book club and not being in the book club for this group. I don't want to keep that. Now the other thing, if you'll remember that I did, was I made a graph of this. The way to make a graph, you click on graphs, you go down to this legacy dialogues, click on, if you want a bar graph, that's what I did. Because I've got two groups, it's a cluster because I want to be able to show both things at the same time. You don't necessarily have to, but for this purposes, we're going to. Now, this part is a little tricky. The way to kind of, if you do it wrong, it's no big deal. You can go back and change it. The way to, the category axis is the data that's going to go across the bottom. In other words, my books read. So I'm going to highlight that, move it there. The book club participation, yes or no, are they in it? Goes here. Click OK. And you get a graph, just like that. Now, what I would encourage you to do is save this so that you don't have to put it back again. We may do something with it later. You have an option of saving this, and you can save it to your desktop. You can save whatever is convenient for you. Because you're just renting this software, I would not save it within the software program. Save it somewhere else you can get to it. Make a folder for it, save it where you want it. And you have as many, it's just like anything else that you save. After you've done that, I'd encourage you to go around and kind of play with this. What we'll do is, once everybody has some time to work with this, we'll set up a session with Illuminate so that we can kind of practice this. If anybody gets stuck, then we'll know what to do. But really the way to learn how to run something like this is to just play with it. If you want to let all your variables back, click all the cases. and they all show up again. It's just one of those things you got to play with it. They analyze stuff, try playing with the descriptive statistics, just see what it does. Tell me how many books read. Give me some charts. Yeah, I like some charts. Stats. Give me median. Hit OK. Just see what happens with it. So now you kind of get a frequency distribution, and you get a bar graph similar to what you see in the book. So play around with that, and we'll set up a session for this in Eliminate. So if anybody's stuck, has a problem, we can work our way through it. And that's it.